The UDRcast is not affiliated and does not represent any 12-step fellowship. I, Bill Ward, the host of the UDRcast, will be sharing my experience and my journey of recovery. That does include, but is not limited to, the literature contained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. Our guests will be sharing their own path to recovery and what has worked for them. The UDRcast encourages and supports all paths to recovery. Welcome everybody to the UDRcast. UDR stands for Uncover, Discover, and Recover. My name is Bill Ward, and I'm coming to you from the recovery capital of Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Here we are going to discuss everything recovery, different perspectives, different experiences, both with the people I know and with others from around the world. If you resonate with anything you've heard on this episode today, we ask that you share it with anyone who you think may benefit from it. If you have any questions or comments, please find us at BILLWARDLIFE and send us a message in the info section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you are interested in more recovery content, you can find the buttons for the YouTube channel and other social media outlets on the homepage, and you will be redirected to those platforms. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time.
Let's talk about sponsorship and early recovery. So confusion in the rooms regarding when a person should start sponsoring. I get that all the time. Like, I feel like I'm too new to sponsor. I feel like I don't have enough experience to sponsor. How do I go about this when I'm hearing both things? And the fear around sponsorship and being judged because they're too new, and the confusion in the room. So if you were to speak to somebody about advice on sponsorship coming into recovery.
Well, I mean, advice for somebody coming into recovery that is, when they first come in, I don't want to hear about them sponsoring. It's fine if they have a genuine fear. They have a genuine fear of the 4 or 5, or they have a genuine fear of the 9 or the 12. That's perfectly fine. And we'll chat about that. And, the conversation will go somewhat like, well, you're not there yet, or, we'll chat about it when you're there. It's actually very simple, at least as far as I'm concerned, the experience I have with guys. Like, I have them underline, I have them bracket, underline, and double underline the book in the parts that are non-negotiables that need to be chatted about, specifically the underlines and the double underlines. By the time they're 12 stepped, if I am the drinker, I am to fucking get hit by a bus. They have the ability to take another individual through the book just by me underlining and double underlining. You'll find that, a guy who is new has had the same experience, right? So, and there's a solution. Chats about 4 things. It says that we've had the same experience, obviously know what we're talking about. Our whole deportment shouts a new prospect, we're a man with a real answer, and that we have no attitude of holier than thou. So where these newer people, where they benefit the newer sponsor rather, where they benefit the new people coming into the rooms, they've had the same experience. Now I've had the same experience, but that was years ago, and I can't really draw to that experience with conviction as much as I used to be able to in the first number of years. So let's say they're 6 months, they're 9 months, and they're talking to somebody that's new and they're trying to sponsor them, and this individual has had a 180 change in 3 to 4 months. That holds a lot of depth and weight compared to me or Bill, who's been sober multiple years. And, it could almost be threatening, like, holy fuck, does it have to be 10 years or 5 years before I get this thing, right? And no, that's not the case. So where the newer individual benefits, like I had mentioned previous, is that they've had the same experience. They've seen drastic change in a very short amount of time. And that could happen to the other individual. So from there, typically takes me around 3 to 4 months to get an individual 12-stepped. By the time I'm done with them, let's say they got 6 months sober, is pretty typical, right? What I'll do from there is I will get back together. I took them through the book as a wet alcoholic, which is new. I could take them through the book twice, which is, again, and that'll be from a sponsor's point of view. It's very rare I will take them through the 12 steps based in their self again. You know, the first was for themselves. The second actually has nothing to do with themselves. It's how to properly take another individual through the book. So he's 6 months. We'll do that again. That's more of a group of sponsees. That'll take roughly another 3 months. And throughout that time, I'll bring them on. A lot of the times I'll bring them on other sponsees that I have, so they could see what I did with them, kind of like a third party. Right?
So does that include you would bring someone in and have them watch you complete step 5?
No.
Okay.
No. So that is the exception. No step 5 and no amends. Right. But then what'll happen is that if they get a sponsee, then I'll do their step 5. I'll do my grand sponsee step 5 with my sponsee. That's where he'll see how a 5's done from a third party. It's not seen with my other guys, because what'll happen is that if there's another person there, the odds of this guy being dishonest because of this other person is like 90%. There's things he's not going to tell me.
You'll do the grand sponsee 5?
That's right.
For the sponsor, but not have the sponsor in there with it?
No. So if I'm doing the grand sponsees 5, then the sponsor will be there.
Okay,
But if I'm doing my own sponsees 5 and my other sponsees there, if I'm sponsoring a sponsee, my other sponsees there as a third wheel, he won't be involved in the 5, nor will he be involved in the amends. So you start putting all this together, and you start actually getting a guy that can stand firm in sponsorship. It's taken me a lot of years to kind of build that whole thing out, what I just described to you. But typically these guys can sponsor 6 months. That's kind of typical. And he's 12 months, or he's 12 stepped. Generally, I don't let a guy sponsor outside the 12 steps. If he's step 10, he could help guys, but he's not going to be sponsoring. Why that is because working with others is such a comprehensive chapter on what is and what isn't. And at the very least, I have to give him that information, or he will start helping these guys and sponsoring these guys very crookedly, like very selfishly.
Got it. Okay, so 2 takeaways there was being early on, instead of fearing it, it's actually a really good asset, because a person isn't going to be overwhelmed with the holy shit, I have a lot of work to do. It's more like, wow, this person was just where I am and look where they are. And so that frothy the appeal to it is more achievable in their mind and less frightening. So that was a really good point that I've never even thought of it like that. So that's awesome. And then the other thing was that it is a real thing for people to have their sponsors sit in on their step 5 and to watch that.
Yeah. The other thing I would mention just quickly though is that, so like I take the book in sessions, right? So for example, up until step 5, it'll be 3 sessions. It'll be a chapter and a half. So he doesn't have to, my sponsee who's about to sponsor somebody, he doesn't have to understand the whole book. He just has to understand that session. That's it. And so what I'll have them do is I'll have them, let's say he's meeting the first session with a guy. I'll have him read all the underlines and double underlines, and then he will ask me questions based on that. And then he's set up for that session. So that's all it is session by session that he has to at least come to some sort of an understanding around.
And for me, as soon as a guy is 12 stepped, he should be sponsoring. He should be out there meeting people. I think the nonsense that you sit there and wait for these guys to come up to you and talk to you and ask you is nonsense. Yeah. Based on my own experience, when I was looking for a sponsor, I was way too scared to go approach and ask anybody. But I was receptive to people just saying hello to me and hey, and sitting beside me on the bench outside after the meeting and shooting the shit about hockey or whatever. And we do not wait for these people to come to us. We go to them. We are the fishermen, and we are the ones throwing the line in. And we do it in a tactful way with a lot of common sense. And it's sometimes the 8th, the 10th, the 15th meeting where you've actually seen this guy and you've said hi to him 8 times. You've engaged in little conversations 4 times. And now on the 5th or the 6th, after that, you're engaging in some type of recovery chat, you know, and maybe it's like, what step are you on? Have you started the steps? You know, are you in treatment? Whatever the case may be. And one of the fucking go-tos that I give my guys is this line right here. It's, hey, if you ever need somebody to show you the ropes, my number's on the list. You just offer to show them the ropes, you know, take them to a meeting, fucking, you know, talk about the steps, fucking hang out, show them the ropes a little bit. And that just opens that little bit of a crack of a door to get somebody interested in maybe jumping in your car and going to a meeting, right?
So is it uncommon for you or Jesse to like kind of match? So if you don't have enough time to be sponsoring, would you say, here's this guy and send them to a different person?
Yeah, I'm always slammed. Like I work with guys nonstop, have for years. I'm always slammed, but I always stand up, or I always put my hand up anyway. Because if the person was attracted to maybe what I had to say, I can give them to the lineage that I've sponsored, to my sponsees or other people that I know that are looking, and I will pass them on. Sometimes that works fine, but other times they wanted me specifically, so they'll just, you know, take it upon themselves and say, you know what, thanks for being honest with me, but I'm going to keep looking for somebody else. But I will often take guys and pass them on to other guys that I've worked with or other guys that I know that are looking to sponsor. So I never just sit down and say nothing. I usually stand up or put my hand up and be willing to at least engage with them.
And finally, with this topic here, could you give some advice to anybody watching who's like thinking about or wanting to change sponsors? Can you hear the vacuuming? There's somebody vacuuming here. Anyways, so for people who want to change sponsors but don't know if they should, what would be a reason to change sponsors, and how do you go about having that conversation?
Well, a lot of new people will bounce around to different sponsors because they don't really want to do the work, and they like the fellowship, they like bouncing around, but they don't really want to do the work, and or subconscious fears don't really want anyone to get to know them, because a lot of those entrenched patterns is not really ever being in a real relationship or partnership. So once it starts getting a little bit real, they'll bounce and they'll bounce and they'll bounce. So if they come to me and they ask me about jumping sponsors, you know, if I have the time, I'm going to sit with them and I'm going to ask them a whole bunch of questions. One of the things is, who's your sponsor? Because, you know, some people are really good. Some people do this really in a good way, and some people are fucking around. So number one, I ask them who their sponsor is, and then I guide them based on whatever they tell me. And the thing about an alcoholic or an addict is, you ask them questions, they're willingly going to lay the chips on the table about every aspect that I need to know. And the thing about an alcoholic or addict is, I actually know them better than they know themselves. So as they speak to me, they think they're unique, but they're not unique. They're fucking revealing so many manifestations of their own illness to me that I'm able to kind of call them on their shit, or guide them, or tell them, you know, this is what you're doing. You're fucking just avoiding, or you're whatever it is. But legitimately, there are some people that need to move on. And I don't think it's usual that I would say, yes, leave your sponsor, go get a new one. But I'll always say, you know what? You got to sit with this and you got to fucking think and go, fucking, what do I want? And you got to make the decision with your God. And legitimately, sometimes it is a good idea to switch sponsors. Sometimes we outgrow our sponsors even, because not everyone is doing this deal for real. And a lot of people really do want to dig in and do a lot of the right things. And it's easy to fucking speak and do this shit in the rooms. But now when you get out of the rooms, so a sponsee may be attracted to a message and a person in the room, but then as they start working with them out of the room, they start seeing all of these inconsistencies, and they're not really living up to what they're saying in the room. And that's really common. Yeah. So then they're like, this isn't really what I want. And a lot of times that individual will judge the program as a whole on people being full of shit. But yeah, a lot of people are full of shit. But when you're jamming the sickest people in our society in the one place and you think they're all going to be well, you're on fucking glue, right? You get the sickest people in society all jam-packed into a fucking CO2 cartridge that they call the program. We're not fucking well. But there is a bunch of well people here, and there are people that are trying to do this and live this. And maybe you picked the wrong sponsor right now, but you got to the point that you did with them. Be grateful. But with a proper display of honesty and morality, you stand a better chance of getting what you really want. You go express yourself properly. And if they get resentful that you're leaving them as their sponsee, that's not your shit, that's their shit. But it usually works out good, because if anyone who is sponsoring is going to get fired by a sponsee, me, if I get fired, I just wish the guy well, man. And when I see him, I say, hey. And I don't fucking take it in a fucking personal manner, because there's no point in it. And and I might even help guide them to a good sponsor if they're really legitimately sincere in their quest for growing in spirituality and in their own character building.
Yeah, I think that's pretty comprehensive. I wouldn't really add much to that.
Thank you for tuning in to the UDRcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. The viewpoints and the opinions expressed today were solely of the individual sharing them. If you resonated with this episode, please follow us and share this link with anyone that may benefit from it. Please visit us at BILLWARDLIFE to see everything that we have going on. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time.